And in all these three elements, South Africa scored 60, but the campaign finance category was the worst performing area with a score of 41. And there were 5 areas, and this is quite important, where South Africa performed well with a scores of above 70 in both the 2014 and the 2019 elections. That is, 1, the vigor of our electoral laws, the vigor of our electoral procedures, vote count, results, and the integrity of the election report. Now, having given you what an independent international assessment of the South Africa's electoral system, there are a number of issues in the environment which require some kind of reflection. First of all, you may be aware of threats like this one or the other electoral contestant. The first point to raise in that regard is those contestants need to be aware that the electoral code of conduct now takes effect. And should there be repeat offences, it will leave the Commission with no choice but to pursue enforcement procedures in the electoral code. That's the first point. The second point is that leaders of political parties must exercise mature leadership and realize that there's a certain standard of leadership expected on the part of all role players in a constitutional and democratic state. A constitutional and democratic state cannot countenance behavior which is an antithesis to constitutional coexistence. So we want to get that message in no uncertainty, in other words, without prevarication, that behavior which is an antithesis to democratic and constitutional coexistence, and such behavior cannot be countenanced in an open society. And quite frankly, the Commission is not intimidated by insinuations of violence that may be visited upon South Africa. So, of course, the Commission is concerned for the safety of all citizens and that nothing untoward happens to people from the day of voting on the day subsequent to voting. But the Commission does not feel intimidated in any way. And the Commission assures all South Africans that it will discharge its constitutional duty without any apprehensions occasioned by threats that have become commonplace in the space. And perhaps the risk of there's a misconception that the Commission is entrusted with the responsibility to enforce. It is not so. The Commission is not a clear and in a sense. In respect of matters related to the enforcement of the Code of Conduct, those are at the doorstep of the Electoral Court. As at today, just over 100 institutions have been accredited as observers. A substantial majority of whom are South African institutions. There are a few international observer groups that have an established history of observing elections in the world, such as the Qatar Center and so on. The Commission welcomes that extra layer of oversight on the electoral process because, as I indicated, we deal here with 23,000 service points and people are subject to the vagaries of human conduct. And to the extent that people are subject to the vagaries of human conduct, there may be aberrations that exist. Now, that extra layer of eyes and the behest of observers and so on is welcome. And about that, there should not be any equivocation of any nature. But even as we say that, it's important that we don't detract from established protocols, if one may say, established protocols for inviting observers and so on. The established bodies for purposes of observation are multilateral institutions such as the EU, the UN, the European Union, the Commonwealth, SADC and so on. It is those structures because they cross or they operate across national jurisdictions that often send observers and so on. We do want them to come, and the Commission, if they apply for accreditation, will be all too willing to attend them so that they can observe the election. So even as we encourage observation, it has to be within established parameters of international practice. The voters' role has shown improvements, and as you may be aware that 27.79 million South Africans are on the voters' roll, which has been certified on Tuesday. 55% of the people on the roll are female, which is an established phenomenon on the roll. But we've shown a great improvement in respect of the registration of young persons, and a majority of them, a substantial majority of them, using the online portal to register themselves. In the age category 20 to 29-year-olds, we are hovering at around 48%. Is that where we want to be? Certainly not. We would have loved an even greater representation. But coming off the low base that we come from, we think that a reversal is discernible in the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sai Mamabolo. I think we'll open up for questions and answers, session. It would be preferred if you can start by introducing yourself and the media house you represent. We'll take very few questions, not a lot. Also making time for Mr. Mamabolo before he dashes off to do one or two interviews. Can you take us?
It's Robert from Rapport and City Press. Mr. Mamabolo, it seems as if logistically, this is going to be quite a challenging election with independent candidates, a lot of parties, even though the number hasn't been finalized, but it will be a lot, and then an extra ballot paper. What does the IEC do to ensure that it will be able to cope logistically? Will you have enough money? Will you have more staff? If you could just give us a bit of a picture of what needs to be done there.
Well, my mic is playing up. Okay. No, that's fine. The enormity of the logistical
It's on.
hello? The enormity of the logistical it's not me, it's him.
Okay.
Just in case you say that the questions were so tough that he started. Okay, the enormity of the logistical undertaking cannot be underestimated. This is a big election, one that we've never have had to deal with from a logistical point of view. As we reported, at the preliminary level, there are 115 parties that may be spread across the different ballot types. 18 independents spread across the 9 different province to national lists, and another, I think 17 or so independents spread across the 9 provincial ballots. We are finalizing the verifications, especially the deposits paid, to check who has qualified and who has not qualified, so that on the 26th of March we can release the provisional list of candidates and afford South Africans and all interested stakeholders to raise objections and so on. The election, the nature of the logistical undertaking does indicate a need to acquire more staff, and I'll give an example around counting, the counting of ballots. Counting will still happen at the voting station, as was the practice in the past, but we will certainly require more staff members to assist with counting. So that's just one indicator. The second indicator of the enormity of the task relates to the number of ballots to be printed. In the 2019 elections, we printed a minimum of 70 million ballots, 70, give and take. On this occasion, we'll print no less than 80 million ballot papers over a 30-day printing window period. So in that 30-day window period, you can't get things wrong. You've got to get the ballot books correctly done, printed, stitched together into books of 100, labeled, put into a ward consignment and delivered to the right ward. Don't take the ward in Moretele and take it to Bela Bela, because they're all along the N1. You've got to ensure that the packaging and the labeling and the stitching together, you get them right in that logistical process. So that means you need quality assurance processes in that value chain. Much more so today than was the case in the past. In terms of budgets, I think given the extent to which other state bodies' budgets were cut, we've not been dealt a heavy blow, so to speak. Nonetheless, we still are in discussions with National Treasury about matters related to the retention of surplus, which can then be used to augment budgets in the financial year starting 1st April and so on. If we get through that hurdle, we should have enough in the pot to carry us through a decent election.
Thank you so much, Musidi. Franz Loamachate from Progressive Independent News Agency. So that is where I work outside of the National Press Club. So I've got a couple of questions. How smooth and seamless was the process of the independent candidates registration? What kind of assistance was given to these independent candidates, considering the fact that the independent candidates are not muscled or do not have enough resources as political parties? So what kind of assistance was given to them? And I see in the House we've got one independent candidate, so maybe I must just take this opportunity and ask her as well. It's Annelimda. What was her experience registering as an independent candidate? So I'll apologize for putting her on the spot. But yeah, what kind of assistance was given to political independent candidates? Thank you.
Well, first of all, congratulations. I didn't realize you were an independent. Well done. You are part of the story of the evolution of our electoral democratic system. And your courage is really something that has to be acknowledged. The difficult thing about which we need to think about carefully going forward as a society is that until the date on which independent candidates bring their nomination documents, you don't know who they are. And to be honest, I didn't know, because I don't look at the reports, otherwise I'll be accused of disseminating since the Friday story. I've not looked at the report because I don't want my PC to be subjected to a forensic audit. But really, I think we have to think about what is it that we need to be tweaking in the system to ensure that there's much earlier engagement with those prospective independent candidates. One way that comes to mind, I've not thought about it carefully, is that maybe a year or so ahead of elections, we need to open up and for people to express themselves as prospective candidates via an intention to contest an election. And once they've signed an intention to contest an election, we treat them as prospective independents and then start to engage with them on the requirements. I don't know your experience, but I can imagine that the difficulty would have been what are the requirements, getting that information, and so on. Fortunately, in respect of elements such as the signatures, the Concord intervened and said what Parliament had put as 15% of the quota in the previous, 15% of the quota per seat in the previous election should be reduced to to 1,000, and that I am sure that was helpful for independent candidates. But this is the novel experience, and it being a novel experience, there would have been challenges, no doubt, but we hope that even with those challenges, the independents are given the space to campaign, they're given the opportunity to campaign, especially female independent candidates, so that they are not subjected to all manner of harassment during the campaign period. Thanks.
I know the question that you want to ask.
It's Natasha Fury here from SABC News. Dr. Sa, I know you tackled this issue during the week, specifically in your briefing on Monday about the whole employee, the IEC staff member who leaked the list of the MK party and of the ANC. But in terms of hiring your staff, what processes do you go through to actually vet them to ensure that such incidences don't occur again? Also, what precautions will you be taking in future with the security of election material? Thank you.
It is very easy to vet and ascertain material things, like I have a degree from Limpopo University. It's very easy to do that. It's very easy to do a criminal check to ensure that you're not bringing somebody with the propensity for criminality into the institution. And whether a person says they have a driver's license and so on, you can vet that and establish the veracity of that driver's license. What is more difficult is to vet the heart of a person. Because all these ill things repose in the heart. So with vetting, you still would not be able to completely eradicate intentions such as the one that we've experienced. Now, what have we done? We've removed the module for reports from the candidate nomination system and limited access to that. But some of us have fallen victim because now we can't check things. But that's a measure that we needed to take in the context of an evolving crisis that we're dealing with. Two, we are also reviewing access rights to report sections and functional pages of all our business applications, just to ensure that the right people have the right access into the right reports. We also are issuing communication to all staff to conscientize them once again about the sensitivity of some of the information in our systems. And we are also working with the information regulator to ensure that the remedial measures that have been implemented are adequate going forward.
Thank you so much. My name is Aserindo from Capital Live Radio. She didn't complete the question. Who is the person that aspired, if possible, to tell? And also, which capacity was she or he working as a senior, and in which office exactly? The second question is that I heard that the appetite for the youth to register grew a bit, you see, this time around. I just want to find out, how do you communicate with the youth, specifically as the IEC, especially in the radio space? I'm going to talk in the radio space now, because I've never, I tried personally, but unfortunately it never worked. I've never received even a single call. Our station is a youth radio. We've never received a single call for advertising from the IEC. And we contacted them. And unfortunately, it never came back. Yesterday, we had an OB at one of the universities. Let me just say, tutoring. Most students have the appetite to vote, but they are late now, especially with the hype of one political party that is targeting them, or they just like it for some reason. They keep saying, we didn't know that there was a voting weekend. Most of them, especially those that are still new in the university, they are here now. They didn't register to vote. So I just want to understand the criteria of how do you communicate with the youth while you don't involve youth radio stations in your programs. Thank you.
Okay, the first question, I think we also have a duty of care that we must exercise towards the employee. Obviously, what the employee did was quite revolting and a very unsavory and dastardly act. But I think as a responsible manager, it may place the life of that employee at peril if we disclose her name and details of employment. I just feel that way. We don't know what could happen to her, we don't know what could happen to her family house, and the like and the like. So on that basis, I prefer not to disclose, unless if she can come herself into the open and say things such as those. My difficulty with the second question is that I'm not youth myself, and I'm struggling
with youth things.
I'm struggling with that constituency, important as it is. But just to say a few things about engagement with young persons. Our research tells us that a majority of young people receive information about politics and democracy not from radio. They receive their political news and they engage politically on social media. So they are not people of the time when I was born who go and say now is an hour to listen to news. They don't operate that way. They are on the beat. They have their phone here. It's not just a communication tool for them. It's an instrument of political engagement. So it is important, therefore, that insofar as it relates to them, you engage with them at that level, which is why part of our mix of media, social media, is prominent precisely because we want to engage with young persons on that platform. But that is not to mean there's no need for radio. Radio remains crucial for other age components. Certainly the elderly in our society and so on, there are still a significant proportion of South Africans who rely on radio for news. As to the mechanics of who you spoke to and you were never, a call was not responded to, my colleagues who deal with those issues are here. Please engage with them accordingly. The CEO doesn't deal with their colleagues. They'll sort that out. But let me point out something, and this is not necessarily related to your question, but very, very important point that you raised. My sense, and this is the sense, Simon Mabolo's sense, is that at least everyone knew that there was a registration weekend. They may not have been enthused sufficiently to participate, that I accept. But to say, I didn't know, in my mother tongue we have to say, wow, but that's fine for now. Yeah. And maybe we didn't engage them enough, we didn't enthuse them, we didn't create the necessary enthusiasm that, which was such that they woke up on the day to go to the station. And they didn't have to. We launched the online registration portal in 2021. And since it was launched in July 2021, 2.5 million people have used that online portal. And close to 80% of the users of the online portal are young persons. Sure.
Should we take? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. I'll start with.
Anastasia Mkhobu, Jacaranda FM News. My question is regarding the code of conduct and the threats that have been made to disrupt elections on May 29. The fresh threats that were made yesterday, this is particularly if their candidate is not on the list after the voting process. So here there seems to be confusion in terms of Section 47 of the Constitution. Can you please clarify for us if a candidate cannot be elected in Parliament, or does it only apply when it comes to being on the list? Can I be on the party's list if I have a criminal record, or does that only apply if I have to be appointed to Parliament or provincial legislature? And my second question is regarding the programs that the IEC started to, just on the issue of clarifying the ballot, what people can expect, and what's happening with those programs now, and how are they going to be conducted? Because obviously we no longer have voter registration weekend, so how are those campaigns going to be done? Thank you.
Well, you do civic education in phases, and that phase aligns with your electoral cycle. If you are in the voter registration phase, your focus obviously must be the requirements for registration, where to register, how to register, etc., etc. And then it moves into a candidate nomination phase, and that's what your focus becomes. And as you finish your candidate nomination, which is really what we are currently doing, you go into balloting education. That is, the ballot papers, how are they going to be, how many of them, and how they need to be technically marked, correctly marked. and so on and so on. So your question is how. The how part is, again, you employ all the media. We're going to be using, we've got over 2,000 democracy education facilitators on the ground who are engaging with communities. But that's not enough, because not everybody goes to a community meeting. You again have got to employ social media, you've got to employ radio, you've got to employ even TV for the delivery of voter education. And that's precisely what is in the offering. Now, the first question. On the 26th and 27th of March, we will have the list of candidates published so that members of the public can object. And part of the grounds of objection could be constitutional and or statutory. Constitutional in the sense that could say, in terms of Section 47, Sai Mamabolo can't stand because he was convicted for so long without an option of a fine. Statutorily, because no, Sai Mamabolo is not registered, is not on the voter's roll, and therefore he can't stand. The objections to candidates will be adjudicated by the Commission, and they'll apply the law. But your question is, are we fusing the Section 47 constitutional requirements with the Electoral Act requirements? Section 47 deals with membership of a legislative body, not qualification to stand for office. You see the distinction. Which means notionally, that you can be a competent candidate but not be competent to assume office because of Section 47. But if it were me, already, if you can't meet the second threshold, why would you be a candidate in the first threshold? But those are matters that the Commission will apply themselves to, but they are distinct.
Against the DA, and I think one of your former commissioners, Mr. Tzlan, has also made that call against the DA for requesting the US to form part of the observer mission. Is there any action that you'll be taking against the DA? And secondly, have you heard from the US if they will honor this call by the DA? I also want to check, political parties seem to be in transgression of many rules, with others declaring more openly. First of all, is it your responsibility as the IEC to educate political parties on what to say and what not to say? And if the answer is yes, do you think your strategy is working or not? Lastly, foreign nationals who have become naturalized South Africans, can they stand for elections?
Naturalization means they're citizens. And if they are citizens, yes. Yes, if they're naturalized. I think South Africa needs a deep conversation about issues such as those. I'm aware that there'll be an electoral reform panel, but its mandate is very narrow, is to look at the electoral system. I think as a country, we need a much deeper conversation to include that issue and approach it really from a rational, rights-based perspective, but also balancing that with the genuine fears of South African people, of South African citizens. Have we heard from the U.S. government? No. Let me say this. It would be nice to reject Mr. Blinken's application for accreditation, because then I can frame that and put in my office. Does that call for action to be taken? I think it calls for a discussion, and on the basis of that discussion, then for the Commission to decide what then appropriate course of action is.
I think we get the last 3 hands. Now I have.
You have 40.
No, we still fine.
Now it's 6 hands. Can you? The last 7.
Yeah, let's take
The last 7, is that fine?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right. I think it was, if I recall the order, it was you, then Franz and Antoinette, and then we take the new hands up.
Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Usiso.
CEO, not commissioner.
Oh, sorry. CEO, sorry.
The promotion is welcome.
Sorry.
No problem.
Evening. Thankfully, you've already addressed the one of the US and the DA. One that I would love to be dealt with is in terms of the Electoral Act and how political party conduct has been so far. When the induction happens, what are part of the criteria that will be included for political parties to be educated upon? And as well, looking at the 23,000 service points that are out there, certain service point areas, already there's rumors of threats that the IEC won't be allowed to conduct services for elections in those areas. What precautions has the IEC put in place, or has engagement from the IEC started with those particular areas to try and maybe show those communities the value of allowing service point to function on election day? Thank you.
There are certain legal requirements to register a party, and one of which is a constitution. And the Commission scrutinizes the constitution of the applicant party to ensure that they don't express things that go against the values of the constitution, especially values such as non-racialism, discrimination on the basis of race, gender, etc., etc., etc. And once the threshold is passed and other requirements are fulfilled or satisfied, then you are due registration. If your party identifiers don't resemble of an existing party. And before an election, we've called workshops with parties to tell them, and independents, by the way. I'm not saying that all of them were represented, but we did try to extend an invite to those that we had expressed publicly their intention to participate. So there are those programs that we did with them around requirements of participation, deposits, signature requirements, and so on and so on. You know, sometimes I really struggle with, if you want to be a member of parliament, let's just say an MP, is it unreasonable of society, not the IEC, society, to expect you to know the rules of the game? Is it given the high level, because the National Assembly is the higher authority, constitutional authority in terms of lawmaking processes of the country. Now, is it unreasonable of society to expect a person vying for office, such high office, to be well versed with what the rules of engagement should be? And I don't have an answer myself, but I think it's a question we need to ponder as a people, as a society. Let me give you another example. A party comes and says, no, we didn't know you're closing at 5 o'clock on the 8th. Honestly, they write formally and say, no, we didn't know that you're closing at 5 on the 8th. And, the question comes, but I can't be seen to be decampaigning parties. I have to be careful. Yeah. So, yes, we are taking measures to ensure, firstly, that the climate in which an election happens it accords to acceptable standards. Hence, we're calling out on those who are threatening violence, and we're engaging with them. And like I said in the main address, that we would not be averse to taking action if enough facts emerge that warrant the involvement of the Electoral Court as the enforcer of the Electoral Code of Conduct. That's one. Two, we think on election day, people must be free to walk about, to go to their stations without fear of violence perpetrated against their person or their properties. So we need that reassuring environment for people to leave their homes and be sure that I can go to the station in relative peace and return back to my home in peace. And the net joints is seized with that matter because security is their responsibility. And I think at an appropriate time, net joints will address the country on the security preparations for the elections. At this stage, we can confirm that a lot of work is happening around security planning for the elections, but the details, the generals will take the country into confidence.
Thank you so much. I know time is running out. I'll try to be very quick. It's just two questions, and I know this one, but this is for the purpose of this discussion session, and I know you have addressed this in your previous media engagement sessions. How far is your voter education program, to make sure, particularly considering that the voters now will be faced by almost a different process or more than the normal ballot papers that they get when they go to polling stations. And then my second question is, I think for ages and so far as I've come to know the IEC, the National Result Operations Center has always been the Tshwane Event Center. And I'm so interested because the center looks so dilapidated and it does not look like it's a place where one can can use at the moment. Are there any plans outside of the Tshwane Event Center, and where, or if you're going to use the Tshwane Event Center as the National Result Operations Center, how far are your arrangements in terms of making sure that the place is up to scratch? Thank you so much.
Indeed, we can confirm that the Tshwane Event Center has fallen into a state of disrepair and is not in a usable condition at the moment. We are working on an alternative, and we are advanced in terms of contracting for an alternative thing. So we can confirm it won't be the Tshwane.
Are we still in Pretoria?
Yeah.
We can confirm that the Tshwane Event Center won't be used, and we can confirm that it will be in the Gauteng province, and we can confirm that one of the major considerations that the Commission is taking is the centrality of the place to accommodate everybody. And then voter education program, I did say that now we're going into a balloting phase of the civic education program. We've been dealing with issues of nomination, voter registration. Now those are behind us. We are getting into balloting education. How many ballots, what does each ballot represent, why the 3 ballots, and so on and so on. One of the things that we've been discussing with colleagues who are responsible for this is on the ground we're doing a lot of work, but we have to take the battle a bit more aerially, so that there's a perceptive manifestation of balloting education on radio and elements like those, and that's what we're going to be launching. I can't say tomorrow, but colleagues are here. They can clarify the date on which we're starting.
What sanctions can the electoral court impose on a party or a person that you decide should be sanctioned? And is the IEC the complainant? How does it work? That's the one question. And then I want to ask you, do you see many people on the candidate lists that obviously don't qualify, to the extent that it may be a strategy to put a placeholder and try to find out, maybe through leaks, maybe through other ways, who are on the other lists, and adjust their own lists accordingly. If you see you left out on that party list, maybe this party can pick you up, that kind of thing. And then just the last question, do you have an idea of how long it will take every voter to bring out his vote on these 3 ballot papers compared to what the time it used to be, and what the impact of that can be on the period it will take to get to the final results?
The disqualifications, yes, there are parties that are due disqualification because they may not have paid, or you are an unrepresented party, you didn't submit the list of signatures, and so on. The candidates, no, we've not, personally I've not looked as to whether this candidate is qualified or not, and so on. I think would want to wait for an opportunity where the lists are published in law, and at that point members of the public, and by the way, the chief electoral officer can object as well. Whether he'll gather enough courage, I don't know, but there's a legal possibility to do that. there are also candidates who may be on multiple lists. You are on a list for Party A, but you are also on a list for Party B. In terms of the election timetable, there will be an opportunity given to the two parties to inform them of that fact and offer them an opportunity to replace if they wish to. They may leave them if they want to leave them, but they may also exercise the election to replace. And then the time it takes to vote. Of course, we've not done time studies, but many factors are at play. Even if you were to do time studies, the nature of the environment in which voting happens will be a big determinant, especially as it gets darker. The levels of literacy in the affected community will be a big factor. And one that is a bit hard, but which is a fact, also the competency of the election staff will be a big factor as well. If you have proficient staff, it could even help those who may be illiterate and so on, and help the process to move faster. So we also have to accept that South Africa remains an uneven society. Here in Linwood, at Linwood Primary, things can go very fast because presumably there are high levels of literacy. But in Ramamabolo, in Mamutintan, it might be a little bit of a challenge, even for the chief electoral officer, so, because of the environment.
Colleagues, I'm taking the last 3 minutes, no additional hands, unfortunately. So it's 1, 2, 3, and then we're ready. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Esanola.
Good evening.
My name is Moladela from Misa Radio. On the issue of the candidates list being leaked, and then there's still, I'm not sure if you're right or not. There's still other candidates that needs to qualify to be on the list. Okay, so so I wanted to know that the candidates list that has come, will there be new candidates or will there still be the same candidates that has been?
No, the framework works in this way. On the 8th of March, 5 o'clock, it was the deadline, which means no additional candidates can be captured by either the party or by the IEC. So even as harm was visited upon the two parties, it does not necessarily mean they now have a wanton opportunity to go change the candidates or reorder or whatever. That opportunity does not exist, which is why we say it's a very revolting thing that happened. It's embarrassing, and so on and so on and so on. But that cannot amount to creating another opportunity for the affected parties to resubmit their list of candidates. There's no such a legal facility to do it.
I think it was the lady over there and then Mr. Bell.
Yes, thank you, CEO. My name is Rakhali Chiba from Gauteng City Region Observatory. I just want to touch back on the point of the youth vote, and maybe my question is more forward-looking rather than the current election. I just wanted to know what is the status at this point of e-voting in South Africa? Is that something that we can reasonably foresee in the near future? Is the IEC gearing up for that? Understanding the unevenness of our societies that you're relating to. But I think the increase in the youth vote is already a signal that you will get more youth participation in voting if the platform is online, it's digitized. and I don't think we can avoid that. But I just wanted to get a sense that what is the appetite from the IEC? Is there any gearing up? Are there any plans to move in that direction?
Electronic voting cannot be avoided. So the IEC has had that issue under its radar for a considerable period of time. We have done a cross-national study of jurisdictions that implemented e-voting. And the findings of that cross-national study were somehow saying two contradictory things. One, there was those countries who implemented e-voting and who stayed the course. There are those countries, like Ireland, for instance, who implemented, and Ireland, I think, the Netherlands, who implemented e-voting, but because of certain problems that emerged in the implementation process, then reverted back to manual ballots. Now, it does not mean e-voting is a bad thing. It just says that you've got to be careful in planning all aspects and basically anticipating difficulties that may or may not arise. The biggest problem in those countries who reverted back to paper ballot was the certification of the machines, whether in all instances that the machine does what it ought to be doing. And the electoral authorities in those countries could not positively say it does by way of proper independent certification of each machine. That's one point. The second point, we've had a national consultation seminar, if you like, with political parties in the then party-liaison committee, and one of the rare instances of unanimity amongst political parties was that all of them said, yes, let's look at it, but be slow in terms of how fast you wish to implement it. The third leg is that we think South Africa must get into a national conversation about e-voting, because e-voting conjures different images for different people. You spoke about e-voting and spoke about online voting in the same breath. Now, you can have e-voting as an online reality. It's a one model. You can also have electronic voting on a machine in a voting station and other permutations. You can also have, to deal with the issues of certification, what other jurisdictions have done, they've introduced voter verifiable audit trails. In other words, you go to a station, you vote, the party that you voted, you receive a receipt to confirm that this is the party that you pushed on the machine. And then that printout is validated and put into a box. At the end of the day, a select number of voting stations are asked to compare what the machine says against the count from the printouts to see if there are variations or not. You can do it 100% for a start and reduce incrementally, but those are the options. Now, my sense is that by 2029, the debate will either be settled or it will be very close to settling. But the momentum towards electronic voting is there and cannot be avoided.
I promise you this is the last one.
He must be short.
No, thank you very much. I won't be intimidated. Thanks to the CEO and the chief from IEC and Boma Bishop. My name is William Baron with two heads. I'm a member of the National Press Club, but I also represent CAP.
An EXCO member.
There are two issues that I just want to check, and I had to rush from the airport to come here check for that.
Thank you.
One is the identification of the risk if the IEC has identified any other risk for these elections, and IEC might not pronounce the risk now. One of the issues is the whole issue of the amendments that have gone on. And I'm not sure if the IEC would put it as part of the voter education, where previously in a VD, if many people were on a particular voting station, were able to transport them to another voting station within the VD. And I'm not sure if it's still the case, because if we don't look at that as part of the voter education, is that parties have been showing doing a lot of show of force. But whether those people who are filling the stadium are really voters or registered is another point. So a situation will arise where those masses, would find themselves on that. So I'm not sure if that was identified. The second one is a softer one. I know they were asking the difficult ones. Is last we were having a very serious discussion even today to say when the state is under siege, with all these things that have been coming on the judiciary, on the executive, but also we look at how to defend the state. So we realized that the IEC was now dragged through party political issues into the center. Then the discussion was who should defend the IEC. And we were tempted to defend the IEC as government. But they said, no, it can't be, because you'll be seen to be compromising the state of the IEC. Then the question was, who should defend the IEC? Should it be the state, or because the state and government are two different things? And that is our preoccupation. And I would want an advice from the IEC, because they are the custodian of the processes of our democracy. And immediately people challenge the constitutionality and bring in the IEC, the doubt into the IEC. It's a very dangerous phenomenon for the state. And so what advice, we were having a discussion at a higher level, and even today it was asking the post-cabinet briefing in Cape Town, that same issue, and we avoided. We just say the IEC is capable. But surely, somebody, I'm not sure how your rules allows, that the state must somehow defend the integrity of the IEC. Chair, thank you very much. That was the last question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Balai. So better.
Yes, we do have a risk matrix. Some of the elements of the risk matrix are obvious, others not so obvious. Let me deal with the obvious ones. The energy supply, it's a big risk to the IEC. The mitigation measures, we are in discussions with the Ministry of Electricity and ESCOM, and a task team has been set and it will be meeting again next week. That's one. But whatever guarantees we receive from ESCOM, excuse me, whatever guarantees we get from ESCOM, we should not be lulled into a sense of complacency. and we should work on a plan B, plan C, and so on, to ensure that at the National Results Center, at the provincial result centers, at the voting stations, there is sufficient alternative lighting on election day. Because you don't want people say, when the lights were out for so many minutes, things happened. And we do have, as a country, a very rich imaginations. So in that context, we've got to ensure that we don't create fertile ground for those to manifest and so on. The other one, outside of electricity, is the issue that some colleagues here raised, and that is the safety of voters. It might sound mundane, but it may be real in certain pockets of the country. And then you referenced another one, the persistent attacks on the constitutional architecture of the state, including therein the Electoral Commission. Because if you want to discredit the process, you don't do it on the day of election. You have to do it in the build-up, and then when you lose on election day, say, I told you. You know, so that issue, it's a risk that we are alive to, and we're doing some work quietly. Hence, I said that you know, there are engagements with the relevant parties, and there may be instances may eventuate where we are forced to approach the judiciary for intervention, like the electoral court. But it is essentially, in my opinion, more of a political issue, and it must be the response must be political and not necessarily judicial. You know, because you don't solve a political problem through a court order. Then the last point, is a very crucial point that you are raising about Section 24A, is that voting dispensation that allows you to vote in a voting district in which you are not registered. Parliament has intervened on that matter already in 2021, thereabout, to say that facility must still be availed to the South African voters, but it can only be availed on pre-notification. So you can't just on the day wake up and say, "Hi, Mohotels, kia elsewhere." You know, you've got to pre-notify the Commission by the 17th of May that I'm registered in Linwood, but I'm going to be in Karankua at Drumbeat, if Drumbeat, there's a voting station in Drumbeat, and so on. Then we can know that we need to anticipate your visit at Drumbeat, and your ballots will be transmitted there. Why did Parliament intervene? It is trying to increase the efficacy of the controls around the elections. If you recall, in 2019 we had instances of people saying, I voted twice, and they put it on Twitter, on social media, and so on. We had to focus on that and get people arrested and the like, and the like, and the like. So to obviate those possibilities, you now need to pre-notify. And when you've pre-notified, will inform your home station that Simon Mabolo is no longer is not going to vote at Linwood, is now going to be voting at Rampage. So it's a control that Parliament felt was necessary to preserve the integrity of our voting process.
Dr. Mamabolo, thank you so much. I just want to read 2 comments from Twitter. So the whole time while I was holding my phone, I'm basically on social media. It wasn't really being able to what you were talking. So we've got feedback from a user called Michael Atkins. He calls himself an election analyst. So he says, Simon Mabolo of IEC South Africa confirms that they are busy arranging a different result operations center as the Pretoria showgrounds have fallen into disrepair. He says that it will be central and in Gauteng, and then he says, P.S. Please don't make it a place difficult to reach. And then the second, so he's been tweeting quite a lot, but I think I'll just. So the last one is, it's quite a positive feedback. He said a good question and answer sessions at the NP Club with IEC CEO Simon Mabolo. He gave good answers to some probing questions in a good spirit. We need positive engagement and more of the sessions. So Oscar, I will take the message. Dr. Mabolo, thank you so much for being generous with your time.
There's only one element left, and this is the very last comment I make for the evening. That last comment by Mr. Atkins, I'm sure my boss must have heard that because it must go into the bonus pool.
Thank you, CEO.
Colleagues, good evening once more. I'm just going to quickly do the announcement, make announcements, so that we know where we're going from here and what is happening in terms of the National Press Club programs. We are having the Newsmaker of the Year Awards. That will be taking place on the 17th of April, somewhere around here in Pretoria. So the newsmakers for the year 2023 are the Springbok rugby team. So on that evening, we will be awarding the Springbok rugby team. And then another thing, the Journalist of the Year competition is open. It has been open from the 29th of February, and we are closing on the 20th of March, which is sometime next week. And I promise we are not going to have an extension because we need to make sure that the adjudication of all the entries is done in time. So journalists, you are encouraged to make sure that you enter. Any journalist is welcome to enter. So we've got the 11 categories. I'll quickly read. Category 1 is the news. Under news, it's it's news. And then it's print and online news. We've got news, print news, features, and investigative journalism. We have photographer or photojournalism category. And we have radio. Under radio, we've got radio news. We have radio news features and investigative and or actuality. We also have TV category. Under TV category, we've got TV news. We have the TV in-depth features or interviews. We also have a camera person. So colleagues back there as you're packing, I think this category is yours, the TV camera person. So, and then we have excellence in community journalism. So we are not leaving community journalism outside because as the National Press Club, journalism as in its entirety, it's our passion. And we are making sure that community journalists are also acknowledged in this award. So under this community journalism, we've got the community journalism print. And we have community journalism radio, which is radio news, features or investigative. And then we also communicators, Kate, you are also welcome to enter this one. The Communicator of the Year Award. So we also have that category as the 11th category, and overall Journalist of the Year. So all these winners will get the trophy, the certificate, plus an 8,000 rands cash prize. So that is one thing that it's also happening. So sometime next week we are having 2 discussion sessions. We have one with the Water Research Commission. It will be a morning breakfast session. Just look onto your emails. You'll see those invitations coming. And we are also having another networking session with the National Regulator for Compulsory Specifications. We are also going to have a networking session with them. And we have a number of discussion sessions that are coming between now and the elections. And another thing, as the National Press Club, we have decided we are not going to also leave political parties if they want to have discussion sessions. We are going to host a number of political parties as well for discussion sessions so that you can engage in this kind of a manner. And because I'm trying to rush and I'm trying to see if I don't forget anything. So on the newsmaker we have the tables sponsorships. So organizations are welcome to buy tables at our newsmaker of the year event, and it will be a very beautiful event, and we will be in the presence of the Springbok rugby team as the winners on that evening. I'm not forgetting anything. Antoinette Musidi, thank you so much. Colleagues, from here, we are going to the restaurant just across where we are going to have our dinner. We are going to have our refreshments, but please remember, drink responsibly, don't drink and drive. That is one thing that I can just advise. And then we are continuing to network that side. The main session of that side is dining and networking. So we continue to network. You are welcome to stay longer until I say you can go home. So thank you so much. And there will be a raffle. So raffle tickets are sold outside at 10 rands per ticket. Thank you so much, colleagues.